Okay, I'm going to start off the video with a way to like a sequence that could be effective in reducing tunneling nanotubes that cancer cells use. So they basically connect to other cells by through tubes, and through the tubes they send like damaged mitochondria, apoptotic proteins like BCXL, so that other cancer cells can't do apoptosis, which means that the cancer cells won't die, that they'll continue to metastasize. So basically, this could be because of iron deficiency. Now, the way that could happen is excess zinc. Let's say from oysters. Oysters have too much zinc. So what that's going to do is that it's going to lower copper. So there's not going to be enough copper. That means that iron is not going to be transported because copper helps metabolize iron. So that's why it's important to keep the copper-zinc ratio just right. I suppose excess vitamin C could also make zinc excessive, and then that's going to lead to too much zinc, and then not enough copper. And then if there's not enough iron, that means that the red blood cells are not getting enough oxygen. They're not able to carry oxygen around because red blood cells need iron, which also means that if there's not enough oxygen, there's going to be hypoxia, and where there's hypoxia, which is not enough oxygen, there's going to be more reactive oxygen species, which means that there's going to be more tunneling nanotubes that cancer use. Because tunneling nanotubes, one way they form is with reactive oxygen species. And hypoxia, low oxygen environments, is going to create reactive oxygen species. Now, another good way to reduce these tunneling nanotubes is with fasting, because fasting reduces inflammation. It also uses up glucose that cancer cells they actually feed on. Fasting also increases mitochondria, so you have that they're more numerous and more efficient. So that means that iron is going to be able to be processed, because iron has to go through the mitochondria, which means that there's going to be less hypoxia. Now, after you fast, you have to break the fast right with protein post-fast, because what that does is that it activates mTOR just enough to stabilize new mitochondria without erasing the fasting benefits. So the key amino acids are leucine, glycine, and cysteine, which leads to glutathione, which leads to the protection of mitochondria, which is another important reason why you have to take iron correctly, so that you can make glutathione, so that the mitochondria is protected, is to enough vitamin B6 and then magnesium, and then that's going to affect the copper transporters that helps iron absorb. Iron absorbs, and then iron helps vitamin A work. Vitamin A will stimulate intrinsic factor in the parietal cells, and then that's going to absorb vitamin B12, and that creates cysteine, which also creates a glutathione, and then the glutathione is going to protect the mitochondria. So the protein, actually after the fast, after intermittent fasting, is going to protect and stabilize the ATP capacity after you fasted. So fasting also increases the mitochondrial demand for cofactors. So without the repletion, the ATP production stalls, which means that your immune system is not going to work very well, because immune cells are high energy demanding cells, and that has to be repleted after fasting. So the critical micronutrients for that is magnesium, iron, B vitamins like B1, B2, B3, and B5, and zinc, and also selenium. Now the zinc is going to be needed for the mitochondrial gene transcription at the chromatin, because the So the chromatin is where the DNA is located at, and that's also where the gene transcription factors for mitochondria are going to be boosted. And then there's also the magnesium. For the ATP must bind to the magnesium 2 to be able to function. Another good way to keep the ATP is with a resistance training, because this is actually the locking mechanism, and it basically tells the body that these tissues are still in use. Because when you're fasting, your tissues actually wither away, which is actually bad, because that makes it that means that you have less body mass to be able to protect against cancer. That means that you'll wither away under hypoxic conditions where there's like tunneling nanotubes, and those the tunneling nanotubes are actually creating more cancer, and they're preventing cancer from being depleted, or they're preventing the cancer numbers from being reduced, because the nanotubes connect to other cancer cells, and then they prevent them from going through apoptosis by transferring anti-apoptotic proteins from the nanotube to the other cancer cells so that they're surviving. And if you have less body mass because you're fasting, but you're not keeping that muscle with resistance training, then the cancer cells you're going to have more cancer cells but less body mass, which means that you're less likely to survive a scenario if you were diagnosed with cancer, which is why it's important to train. So basically, a resistance training after fasting maintains the muscle, which is insulin independent of glucose uptake. That also forces mitochondria to remain functionally active and not pruned, which means that there's going to be more immune cells to fight off cancer cells, because immune cells need ATP from mitochondria to fight cancer. So you have a more body mass, which makes it more difficult for cancer cells to eat away at you, and then you got more immune cells from the ATP from the mitochondria, but that's only if you break your fast correctly with protein, resistance training, and then sleep also helps ATP get fixed, because mitochondrial DNA repair, there's more growth hormone, which leads to mitochondrial maintenance, also cortisol suppression, so that the cortisol is not reducing your mitochondria. So basically, sleep deprivation can erase your fasting gains by increasing insulin resistance, suppressing mitochondrial fusion, and increasing ATP leaks and reactive oxygen species. So sleep deprivation is going to lead to more reactive oxygen species, which is going to lead to more cancer tunneling nanotubes, because TNTs feed on reactive oxygen species, which means that there's going to be more cancer cells surviving, because there's going to be anti-apoptotic proteins traveling from one cancer to another cancer through the nanotube, preventing them from going through apoptosis. So that comes to the end of my video. If you have any insights or any knowledge on cancer or ways of preventing it, mechanisms, any foods, leave them down in the comments. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.